So if you've been following me for a while now, then you probably know that productivity is a big focus of mine. I like to experiment with different routines and tricks to try to improve my productivity, and this exploration has led to a few discoveries that has really helped increase my productivity. My dad says something about me that I think is pretty funny, but it's also true, and that is that he's never seen anyone work as hard as me to not have to work. And to be honest, I think that is the reason why productivity is such a big focus of mine. I'm constantly trying to be more productive so that I can have more free time, except as soon as I have free time, I tend to come up with a new project that I can kind of squeeze in. Anyway, here are my best tips for increasing productivity. The first one is to create a place somewhere where you can put all your thoughts and ideas and to-dos as soon as they pop into your head. And preferably this would be done in a note or some other app on your phone. Currently I'm using Google's app Tasks, for now at least. I'm also working on my own app for this. So what I do is I have this app on the home screen of my phone, and anytime an idea or thought pops into my head, I write it down. This is something that I've been doing for years now, and the reasoning is simply that if I don't do that, then I'll forget. But I also recently heard of a guy named David Allen who has his own productivity system called Getting Things Done. And he says that one of the main benefits of using a system like this is that you'll clear your head, because otherwise you'll be trying to remember all of this stuff and trying to keep it all in your head. And after a few ideas pop up, it gets pretty messy up there. And that will then in turn lead to you feeling more stressed and feeling less focused on what needs to get done, which I can definitely agree with. So write everything down in one place and then make sure that you review that place or that list every week so that you can then remove all the things that you got done, and then also remove the things that are no longer important. The second tip is don't try to do it all in one day. This is pretty difficult, and I think that we all tend to be pretty optimistical when we try to estimate how much time something will take. And I definitely used to do this where I would write down all my to-dos in a single giant to-do list, and then I would try to get it all done in one day. This rarely works out well, and I ended up feeling like I was pretty much unable to get anything done. So after that, I experimented with a lot of different tactics. I tried going with what I could remember for that day or what I felt inspired to do that day, and this works okay until you have a lot of different things with multiple deadlines. Then I've experimented with limiting the amount of tasks that I'm allowed to do for one day, and this is really where I've found my rhythm. So that is 2 to 3 tasks per day, no more than that. As soon as I write down 4 to-dos for one day, I end up feeling lethargic and just unable to focus. Now, I may end up getting more than 3 things done in one day, but I never plan for more than 3, and ideally I try to plan for only 2. The way that I do it is I go through the list of all of my tasks, and then I look through them and rank order them by importance and urgency. The most important and urgent tasks, those are the ones that I then pick and choose from, and then I decide which ones are the most important, and then I pick 2 to 3 of those. If I end up with 5 must-dos, then my first line of action is to try to reschedule. However, if it's something that I can't reschedule, then what I'll try to do is I'll try to make sure that the next day afterwards that I either have just really simple tasks for that day, or that that day is completely free, because then I can push myself today and get all of these things done. And if I end up tomorrow feeling completely exhausted, then at least nothing important has to suffer. Next one, the third tip is the Post-it note. I've been using this for the past 6 months now and I really like it. What it is really nothing special at all. At my desk I have a stack of Post-it notes where I write down the 3 to-dos. The reason I've been liking it so much is firstly that you can't fit that much on a Post-it note, so it's kind of a forced constraint in terms of how many tasks you can actually fit on here. For instance, if the tasks were on my phone, then I would have to go into the abyss of distraction that is my phone, and it would be very easy to just quickly check Instagram or mail or something else. And the same thing goes for if they were on my computer. So therefore the Post-it note, Stone Age as it may be, is still a very potent tool for productivity. The fourth tip is to break things down, specifically by repeatedly asking yourself a question. In fact, it's the most common question I ask myself, and that is, what do I need to do to get this done? This one may seem a little bit strange or even obvious, but what this question does for me is it forces me to break each task down even further, so that I don't just end up with a giant to-do like make a video, because that doesn't really help me get started. What I need to know is, what do I need to do to get this done? And this type of questioning is for the day of, so the day that you're actually sitting there and need to make a video. The first thing to do is always to break the task down even further into smaller steps so that it feels more manageable and less overwhelming. So what do I need to do to make a video? Well, I need to write a script and I need to film the video. And what do I need to do to write a script? Well, I need to research a topic, I need to write about that topic, and so on. And this then gives me clear steps to take to actually achieve the ultimate goal of making that video. And the fifth tip is to plan ahead. What I like to do is I like to sit down the night before and write down 2 to 3 to-dos for the next day, and I do this on my Post-it note. I like to do this right before bed, so the idea being that these things are fresh in my mind as I go to sleep, and then potentially I'll be working through them as I sleep and then wake up with new ideas and better ideas on how to do these things. Something that I also like to do is I like to sit down every Sunday evening and write down my week's to-do list. So again, I'll look through all of my to-dos and then I'll rank order them based on importance and urgency, and then I'll pick the ones that I want to get done that week. This is something that I can really recommend because it will allow you to not have to constantly see all of your to-dos. So instead of getting overwhelmed constantly looking at all the things that you have to do, you can just look at the things that you have to do this week, and that I feel like that takes some of the stress out of my life. I mostly just look at the 3 to-dos for the day, and maybe I'll look at the ones for the week, but I really try to avoid looking at the entire list unless something really important comes up. I did a post on Instagram the other day where I ended it with a quote that I think describes the importance of planning ahead really well, and that quote is, "Properly plan today to save time tomorrow." Sixth advice is another question, and that is, how would I do this if I only had 1 hour? Knowing that the quality might suffer, I do suggest that you try this. So basically set a ridiculous deadline for yourself and then try to figure out how you would do this within that time limit. An example would be that if you have to write an 8-page paper, then to get that done in 1 hour, what you could do is you could write maybe 4 pages and then you could copy paste 4 other pages from different articles. Now this will give you an 8-page paper in 1 hour. The quality might not be that great, but you will have the paper nonetheless. Now you could redo the procedure once again and ask yourself, how could I rewrite this paper to get decent quality in 1 hour? And then you do that, and all of a sudden 2 hours in, you have an 8-page paper that would probably get you a pass. Now the point of this is not to start doing copyright infringements. The point is that by asking yourself this question, you'll uncover unconventional ways of doing things more efficiently. And usually rewriting an existing paper feels easier than staring at a blank Word doc, knowing that you somehow have to come up with 8 pages. And this is really my main trick for getting a lot of things done really fast. And my friends actually used to joke about this when I was in school. They used to joke about the fact that they would be sitting there for hours and hours trying to work on a paper, and then I'd come in and in 10 minutes get a paper done. Now this is of course a joke, I didn't get a paper done in 10 minutes, but the point was essentially that they would be sitting there for ages and then I'd come in and get it done super quickly. Now I also just want to mention that I didn't just come in for 20 minutes and then get top grades or anything like that. A lot of my classmates actually got better grades than me. I got pretty decent grades, but the point is more the fact that I was fast enough for it to actually become funny how fast I was compared to them. And this was essentially done by asking myself, what do I need to do to get this done? And how would I do this if I only had 1 hour? Last piece of advice that I'll leave you with, that is eat regularly. Don't forget to eat. Ideally every 3 hours. For me personally, that is the longest amount of time I should go without food. Maybe this sounds like odd advice, but the reason is that if you don't eat, your brain will slow down, problems will get harder to solve, and you just have less energy. If you eat when you're hungry, then you're eating too late. You can almost think of the feeling of hunger as your stomach screaming to you, I can't take it anymore. So if you feel hunger, then you're too late. Eating and sleeping are things that we often leave to our body to decide, but we really should leave to like a clock or something that should tell us every 3 hours to eat and also to go to bed at the same time. I believe this is stupidly simple advice. Eat every 3 hours and go to bed at the same time every day. And it's so powerful, but it's also really hard to do. I'll leave you with this quote from Jim Rohn, and that is, the things that are easy to do are also easy not to. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you got some tips and tricks out of it, and I hope I'll see you in the next one.